The next topic we'll be covering is Basel Norms. The Basel Norms. Now, what are these Basel Norms? We know that banks are recommended to keep aside a certain percentage of capital, as a security against risk, as a security against non-recovery, as against default, and all those things. And they have to follow some prudential norms. We call them prudential norms, wherein they have to recognize whether the person I'm giving the loan has a solid income or not. They have to classify the asset, what classification it will actually be in. They have to keep a provisioning for the NPAs as well. They have to maintain a capital adequacy ratio. So these are your prudential norms, which make actually the operations of the bank more transparent, more accountable, and more safe. So Basel norms are actually a step in that direction, in which the Bank of International Settlement, which is a central bank of central banks created by 64 of the central banks of the world, they created this Bank of International Settlement, BIS. So all over the world, 64 central banks came in and they created this central bank. So this is considered as a central bank of central banks. This Bank of International Settlement is headquartered in Basel in Switzerland, and they came up with Basel Accord. They came up with Basel Accord. So Basel Accord is actually a combination of three Basel norms: Basel 1, Basel 2, Basel 3. Initially, we came up with Basel 1, then we changed it with Basel 2, and now we are working at Basel 3. So Basel 3 norms क्या है वो हम अभी देख लेंगे. पहले थोड़ा बहुत इंट्रोडक्शन लिख लेते हैं. BIS, Bank of International Settlement, is an international financial institution owned by central banks, which fosters international monetary and financial cooperation. And serves as a bank for central banks. It also provides banking services, but only to central banks. And other international organizations. It is based in Basel, Switzerland. And there are more than 60 members in BIS, including India. So you have the Bank of International Settlement as an international financial institution owned by central banks, which fosters international monetary and financial cooperation and serves as banks for central banks, as a bank for central bank. It also provides banking services, but only to central bank and other international organizations based in Basel, Switzerland. And there are more than 60 members in BIS, including India. Next point. BIS came up with the Basel Accord. Including Basel 1, 2, and 3. It was issued by the Basel Committee. It was issued by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which maintains the BIS, Bank of International Settlement. The aim of Basel Accord is to ensure that banks and other financial institutions have enough capital to meet their obligations to depositors and other stakeholders. Okay,